where the roses still bloom. Margaret Delaney had always found comfort in the familiar creak of the porch swing. For over 42 years, she and Thomas had sat there, often in silence, watching the changing skies of Asheville, North Carolina. It wasn't just a swing. It was a timeline of laughter, tears, arguments, reconciliations, and the quiet knowing that love didn't always have to be spoken aloud. When Thomas passed away one cold January morning, the world shrank. The house felt cavernous. The walls echoed with memories she wasn't ready to revisit. She still made 2 cups of coffee every morning. Still turned to tell him things. Still set his slippers by the fireplace. Friends visited. Her son, Mark, came with his 2 little girls every Sunday. The church ladies brought casseroles and hugged too tightly, but nothing could fill the vacancy of Thomas's voice or the way he squeezed her hand without warning. Grief, she discovered, didn't announce itself. It settled like dust. She found herself spending long hours on the swing, talking to the wind as if it might carry her words to wherever he had gone. She whispered secrets. She asked questions. Sometimes she even got angry. "Why did you leave me here alone, Tom? We were supposed to grow older, together." Charlie, her golden retriever, would rest his head on her lap and whimper. He missed Thomas, too. Nights were the hardest. Margaret couldn't sleep with the lights off. She would leave the television on low, just to have some kind of voice in the room. She'd get up in the middle of the night and reread their wedding vows, scribbled in a tattered notebook Thomas had kept since 1973. She memorized every scratch of his handwriting, every smudge where tears had fallen, fresh or old. She began writing letters to him too, in a blue spiral-bound journal with daisies on the cover. Every entry began with "My dearest Tom." It was a rainy afternoon in March when Margaret decided to finally sort through Thomas's study. Everything remained as he'd left it, the pens in a neat row, the books alphabetized, the faint scent of his aftershave lingering like a shadow. In the bottom drawer of his desk, tucked beneath a folder of tax returns, she found them. 27 letters. Each one labeled simply, "If you ever find these." Her hands trembled as she opened the first envelope. "Dear Maggie, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone. That thought hurts, but I needed to leave these words behind. You always said I was bad at expressing my feelings unless I was writing. So here I am, doing just that. I love you. More than I ever managed to say out loud. Tom." She sobbed for a long time. The second letter was about their first date, a rainy night in Charleston where he tripped on a curb and spilled coffee all over his coat. They'd ended up laughing so hard that the owner of the cafe gave them a free slice of pie. Margaret still had the receipt, taped into a scrapbook. The third recalled their honeymoon in the Smoky Mountains, when they'd rented a crooked cabin that leaned so far to the left, they had to sleep pressed against the right wall. They had been poor, young, and blissfully in love. The fourth, about the miscarriage they never talked about. The pain that settled in Margaret's bones for years. Thomas wrote of how he had sat alone on the bathroom floor the night it happened, pressing his forehead against the cool tile, whispering prayers into the silence. She decided to read only one letter every Sunday. It became a ritual, one that slowly softened the jagged edges of grief. Spring brought with it the scent of magnolias and the memory of Thomas planting roses in their backyard every April. The rose bushes had gone wild since his passing. Weeds snaked through the soil. Petals drooped. It mirrored how she felt. One afternoon, she tied her graying hair into a scarf, put on his old flannel shirt, and grabbed the gardening shears. Charlie followed her out as if sensing something important was happening. For hours, she clipped, dug, and whispered to the plants. "Tom loved you. You'd better not give up on me." It was back-breaking work. But when she stood back, covered in dirt, sweat beading on her brow, she smiled. The garden looked less like a cemetery and more like hope. She started cooking again. Small meals. Toast and eggs. Vegetable stew. Enough for one. She listened to classical music while sweeping the floors. She replaced the broken porch light. Life wasn't whole, but it was moving. Charlie, the new mailman, was in his late 60s with gentle eyes and a quiet demeanor. He had lost his wife to cancer the year before. He never rushed. He always had a kind word. One day, seeing Margaret struggling with mulch bags, he offered to help. She declined. The next day, he brought her a small packet of heirloom rose seeds. "Thought your husband would like these. My Sarah used to plant them." Margaret held a packet in her hands and blinked back tears. She invited him for lemonade. They didn't talk about their spouses. They didn't need to. That became a new ritual, lemonade on Thursdays. Their conversations were slow and easy. They talked about birds, old jazz records, forgotten books. One evening, she caught herself laughing, a belly laugh. The kind she hadn't felt in a long time. And when she looked at Charlie, she saw that he, too, was remembering what it felt like to be warm. Margaret hadn't been to a social event in months, but the church picnic called her. She wore her Sunday best and pinned one of Thomas's roses to her dress. Charlie was there, helping set up tables. "You came," he said, smiling. "I wasn't going to," she replied. "But I had a talk with Tom last night. He told me to go." I talked to Sarah, too. They sat together under a maple tree and watched the children play. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. But it was companionship. And in grief, that meant more than anything. A little girl spilled lemonade on Margaret's skirt and began crying. Margaret bent down, wiped her cheeks, and told her, "We've all made a mess before." That moment stayed with her. Life was messy. But still worth it. The final letter came on the anniversary of Thomas's death. "My dearest Maggie, this is the last one. You know how I hate goodbyes, so I won't pretend this is one. You are stronger than you know. And love doesn't die. It just changes homes. One day, you might meet someone who makes you smile again. Someone who understands the ache without asking. Let him in. That won't mean you've stopped loving me. It will mean you remembered how to love life. Always, Tom." She read it aloud on the porch swing. Then she cried. Then she smiled. She copied the letter into her journal. Then she wrote her own letter back. "My darling Tom, I danced today. Not in a ballroom. Just in the kitchen, with the radio on. And for a second, I felt you. I laughed until I cried. And I think you would have laughed too. Love always, Margaret." It was a local bluegrass concert. Margaret hadn't danced in years. Charlie offered his hand. "May I have this dance, Margaret Delaney?" She laughed. "You may. But I warn you, I'm rusty." They danced beneath the stars, two people learning that healing didn't mean forgetting. The wind carried the scent of roses. Margaret felt lighter. Not because grief had left, but because love had returned in a different shape. Years passed. Margaret and Charlie became fixtures in the neighborhood. They never married. Didn't need to. They shared meals, laughter, and silence. Margaret tended 2 rose gardens now. One planted by Thomas. One by Charlie. Every spring, she hosted a small gathering in the garden. People brought poetry, music, photographs of lost loved ones. It became known as the Evening of Remembering. And every year, Margaret told a story. About a man who loved her with quiet strength. And another who helped her remember how to live. And in the garden behind her house, the roses still bloomed.
Senna, bringing you amazing life stories. Stay tuned.